Good evening and welcome to tonight's episode of Hey Sister. Hey Sister, how you doing?
Hello, sister. It's been a long time since we've been on this platform.
Yes, it's been a long time, folks. And as we said, this year has been a year and we are nearing the end. We said and we agreed that we would kind of take it easy, come and talk to you. We got things to talk about. And we've had lots of things to talk about. But tonight felt like this was the perfect night to get on and talk about what everybody's talking about. So if you would, let me see, in typical Hey Sister fashion, we ask that you like, follow, share, subscribe. Girl, let me see my little. They got all these new features. I'm trying to get the
Got
thing.
rusty.
Yeah, well, it's like a lot of different features here. And you click on the wrong thing, it takes you to the wrong place. So we want you to join the conversation in the comments if you watch this live. If you watch this in a replay, we still would like to see your comments and get your thoughts and hear what you have to say. Um, we also would like you to like, follow, share, subscribe. Let people know that you've been watching Hey Sister. You've been in there with us for a while. And we appreciate those of you who are there and who are with us. And you can always find the latest episode right there at our website down below. So before we dive in, I got on my Thibodeauville shirt. So, sister, give the folks an update on Thibodeauville and where you are. As a documentarian, since we're going to be talking about documentary work, tell the people where you at on Thibodeauville.
Well, first, I'm just going to continue to refer to it as Thibodeauville, the film, as not
Mhm.
to confuse it with anything else that might have a similar name. But we are excited. We have been entering in film festivals. We're hoping to get picked up so that we can gain some greater exposure and you know, hopefully land some distribution for this documentary. We've also had the opportunity for fiscal sponsorship through the Southern Documentary Fund. Yes, we're really excited about that because fiscal sponsorship means then that anytime, for example, if you work for a company and they do matching funds, or if you work for an entity that is not allowed to donate to individuals, but can donate to other nonprofit organizations. You can do just that, donate to the Southern Documentary Fund and earmark funds for Thibodeauville. And we're in the process of finishing funds. So the film is made, it's put together, assembled. It's like I said, we've begun doing the festival submission process, but that costs. So there are costs associated with that. There are some things that we're looking to do to enhance and improve the documentary and include some hopefully named talent that will help us get more eyes on the documentary, and then other things just like as you finish the process of coloring and sound mixing and things of that nature. And ideally I would love for us to be able to actually have some music composed specifically for the film. Right now, we have music in it, but we would love to have someone put their eyes on it who has the skill set and then actually compose music for it. So those are some of the things, but we're really excited. It is moving along. I know it's been a long time coming. Which, when we get to talking about this particular one of these documentaries that we saw, it's always, it's interesting when you have resources behind you, which, because we definitely got to explain some things about executive producing, for example.
Yes, absolutely. We got some splaining to do. Well, you know what? Let's just dive in to the reckoning.
Mhm.
Okay. If you have not heard about it, I don't know where you've been. But you might not just be tuned in this because you're going on about your everyday life. And honey, life is out there lifing on us all, right?
Yes.
But the reckoning, I don't remember the subtitle. What's the
It's
subtitle
called
on it?
Combs The Reckoning.
Yeah, Sean Combs, The Reckoning. So let's start with definitions, because a reckoning means an account,
Mhm.
right? You gotta hold an account, an accountability, an accounting of the transactions. Basically, if you use it in a mathematical way, it's an accounting. And this reckoning, Sean Combs' The Reckoning, is about um, deeds, misdeeds up until the trial and what have you. But um, this documentary is on Netflix,
Mhm.
and it was executive produced by Curtis Jackson, otherwise known as You Can Find Me in the Club. Okay, 50 Cent.
Right.
That that person. And there's a lot of funny things out there about Mr. Curtis because we know we have seen him troll, very much. He trolled on the level of that person who sits in at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue on the internet.
Right. Probably
Um,
because he aligns his, but anyway.
that's a whole nother thing. But nonetheless, so that is what the documentary about, executive produced by him. And the young lady who is an executive producer and the director is Alexandra Stapleton, I think it is.
Okay, yeah, I was looking for her name actually. Um, yeah, Alexandria Stapleton.
Alexandria Stapleton. So, so before we dive in deep, what's your first impression? Because I texted you when I started.
I mean, my first impression, and I think my lasting impression has been you and I talked about the charges, which were RICO. And of course, we saw that.
So you're talking about specifically just the trial portion.
I'm just saying that we saw that the details of the trial were put on screen, that was superimposed on the screen at the beginning and end of each segment. So I think that was telling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, of course, the charges were RICO related, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt like in watching this documentary that perhaps had more conversations been had in the trial with some of his artists, maybe some of those RICO or former artists, maybe some of those RICO charges might have stuck. I feel like overall, everybody got really focused on the sexual aspects.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I think this documentary overall tried to show is that the sexual deviance is a huge problem. Um, the drug abuse is a huge problem. The baby oil was used was laced with drugs, even though they try to say it wouldn't. But I mean, no human being. Like we were talking about that the other day. We have bottled baby oil that lasted for baby oil. It just ain't something you go through like that. So I definitely believe that it probably was laced with some sort of substance. Um, but it just feels like because there was such a focus on the things that he was doing sexually, that there wasn't enough focus on the other criminal behaviors that he might have been allegedly involved in.
Well, I would say, so my first impression, let's just stick with the first impression before we dive deep. My first impression, as I texted you, I was annoyed in the first 15 minutes because the word that came to my mind was complicity. Because, and that's why I told you, I sent you a message that we need to talk about the reckoning, but more than just this story, more than Sean Combs' The Reckoning. we need to talk about this societal reckoning, right? Because men and probably some women, because Ghislaine Maxwell is an example, who is in prison right now, but who also was moved from uh, one prison to another, and some things shifted in how she's been treated, right? But men do not get to this level of abuse, behavior, um, rude, crass, harmful behavior if A is not rooted in some trauma, and B, there are not a whole bunch of people who are complicit in allowing it to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a young person who is not so young anymore, who was very involved in the, so we talk about hip hop and music, but really, when I say there's a reckoning that needs to happen, it's all of entertainment industry, right? Because Harvey Weinstein is in jail right now. But before Harvey Weinstein, we've heard about the casting couch. So it didn't start with a Harvey Weinstein. It started a long time ago, right? It didn't start with P. Diddy. You mean the person who funded P. Diddy is Clive Davis. We heard stories about Clive Davis, right? What is allowed, what is permissible, what boundaries are stretched, what lines are drawn. At Cat Williams told us all about it a couple of years ago on the Shannon Sharp, right?
I mean, I think
And
it was last year, at the beginning of last year.
of 2024, but that's what I'm saying. He talked all about it. So we see it in, when I say entertainment industry, yeah, so that's music, that's movie, in sports. What about the college athlete that's allowed to get away with raping a girl when she's in college?
Mm-hmm.
Who goes on to, then we wonder, oh well, he becomes what's my Darren, what's your boy from who was for the Saints?
You talk about Darren Sharper.
Darren Sharper, right?
Well, I don't know what Darren Sharper did in college.
What I'm saying,
the things I thought you were gonna say Brett Kavanaugh, because
well then we could go to that. Brett Kavanaugh, you become a Supreme Court justice for something that you did in high school because you were alcoholic and whatever. And again, while they may, or you might become the president of the United States, who actually have had a credible case on this.
right.
But it's just, and these people, some of these people have been convicted of these crimes. Some of these people have not been convicted of the crime. So it's not about conviction of the crime. It's not about that. Because the other thing that it shows us in this documentary very well, and we've talked about it before and other things, the court of law is not about guilt or innocence. It's about what can be proven under the laws that are applied, that are filed, that you get the indictment on, what the laws that you bring the indictment on, right? It's not about truth. It's not about innocence, and it's not about guilt. It's about what can be proven in the court of law. And we have in New Orleans, Louisiana right now, the Catholic Church has a settlement of over $230 million for the reckoning of what has happened in the Catholic Church and the permissibility of children and women being abused.
Yeah.
All right. So that's what my key takeaway was.
So
the complicity.
Yeah. And I would say, yes. Okay. Complicity. Because we're going to talk about some other stuff. But also within those first 15 minutes, my eyebrows raised that I can only take away, and this is my this is how I surmised it. You may have taken something different. I don't know. As we watched, the first thing we were like, oh, he had his own film crew. And so that felt very much like he definitely clearly believed that he was going to beat this situation completely. Because I don't know why else you would have been filming. I don't know why else you would have taken it upon yourself to hire people to follow you around, taking pictures in the street. Ultimately, we know there was a PR team behind all of it, but to specifically follow you around, and my guess is once these charges came down and everything, the idea was, we're not going to use this footage. We're not going to see it anymore. We're not going to do anything with it. But clearly, somebody told somebody that the footage was out there.
Well, this is what I heard from CNN Victor Blackwell's show, was that because there's a lawsuit about that now.
Okay.
About that footage. So allegedly, there were, because usually when you're capturing footage, you're capturing video and pictures, you have more than one person documenting, right? You've hired cameramen, and it's usually a crew of people, and they're capturing different footage, different angles, all the like. So allegedly, he's been making his own personal documenting his life for years, and he was going to have his own documentary of his life. We just saw a documentary on Netflix about Eddie Murphy, for instance, right? But that one of the film crew, he did not pay.
Of course.
And so that person, the person who was paid, is not their footage. The person who was not paid wanted to be compensated, so they sold their footage to these documentarians. And so now that's part of what the lawsuit was like. You didn't have the right to sell that because that was not what you were hired to do.
Yeah, well, again, that depends on what the contract says. And so if he hired him and said all the footage belongs to me even before or after, but they're still look, I'm no lawyer. I'm just going by what my understanding of how these things work. If you hire me to do a job, I sign a contract. I sign the contract saying that I'm going to do A, B, C. And in exchange for doing A, B, C, you're going to do D, E, F. And so if you hire me to capture footage of your life, and then in exchange for that footage, I get paid, I then hand you over that footage when you hand me over my check. You don't get the footage in advance. So it would be interesting to see, since he did not get paid, as many people in this documentary apparently attest to not being paid for things. If he did not get paid, then I haven't handed it over to you because the exchange hasn't happened. I can't remember the parts of a contract, but we both haven't fulfilled our obligation in this. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah. So that's an interesting little tidbit, take, twist, what have you, on kind of the dispute of how did they get that information. But to me, it also speaks to a pattern of behavior. Even that we're seeing, where there are some contractors now who were contracted to start working on a ballroom at 1600 Pennsylvania, who we haven't been paid. But didn't you see the pattern of the other contractors that have been hired by this person who don't get paid? You do work and then don't get paid for it. So there's been the pattern of behavior.
Right.
And when you allow people to have that pattern of behavior, it grows. It grows in size and it spreads. It grows in size and it spreads. So I don't know.
So before we dive into some of the more of the details, did you want to talk about the reality reckoning? Because I did watch that as well.
So there is on Impact, Nightline does this Impact. And so Bethany Frankel, who came to her fame through Real Housewives, and actually she had her brand Skinny Girl, um, Spirits brand prior to that, but obviously through that vehicle of being on Real Housewives, it took it to a whole nother level, took her to a whole nother level. But they're on ABC's Impact, and I don't know if you can find a link and we could drop it in the comments. So if anybody wants to go take a look, it's called Reality Reckoning, and it's talking about the reality show business and the reckoning that is happening with people who have starred or have been on many of these shows. And again, it sounds good in the beginning, that initial money. Um, but for your in the current lingo of NIL, and people understand that in sports, but for your name, image, and likeness to be out in the sphere for perpetuity, and you never get not even a cent once again, that's part of the reckoning. The people who are actually having struggles, alcohol in their marriages, we've seen the number of divorces, we've seen people crashing out from drugs, alcohol, and what have you, and not getting support because it's more fodder. And actually, even what they talked about with some of the labor abuses, where they're working 12, 16-hour days. One of the young men, he mentions how he noticed that like they were going 12 hours and they would only get breaks when the shift change would come. And then he realized, oh, that's because the crew is in a union and they only can do so many hours, but they are keeping us. We've worked 12 hours, haven't been fed, haven't been able to sleep, and it's just constant. And we know they produce those shows. What you might see that goes on for 6 months on a broadcast schedule is usually filmed in 2 to 4 weeks. The average actual recording time of a reality show is 2 to 4 weeks. And so there's a reckoning happening in that industry as well.
So, and actually, I just saw that came out 2 years ago already. Actually, December 8th, 2023. So, as of tomorrow, 2 years ago. I think the overall thing and what we put out, when we talked about this, is, what responsibility do we all have in these things, especially we live in what feels like a fame obsessed society. And I think that when we talk about Sean Combs, The Reckoning as well, there were some jurors that were interviewed, and those jurors, in some ways, it feels like they may have either been influenced by their own experiences or maybe was like, as we've sadly heard a lot of people say, well, why did she stay? Well, why did she go back? Well, why did, and which was really interesting to me because I've heard that it's like, as far as Cassie is concerned, it's framed as, well, she actually got some benefit out of this, right? And as far as the young man, Lil Rod, is concerned, it's jokes all day. You have people like 50 Cent still on social media trolling this young man. And there, I don't know, I just don't find abuse to be funny.
Right.
I don't find it to be funny when we see people who are being taken advantage of. Because sadly, these are young people too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they are making decisions in hopes of having the record come out, in hopes of getting the payday, even with the reality show, in
Mm-hmm.
hopes of I'm gonna take care of my family, I'm gonna be able to do XYZ. And as a result, they are signing up for the abuse. And as much as we all would hope that we have, let's call it better judgment or what have you, discernment or what have you, the fact is, at certain parts of our life, at certain ages, we may not all have had that. But it makes you wonder how much of the, well, this is what she signed up for from a reality show standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
is us saying you deserve to be abused because it's entertaining. I watch it, I like it, and you signed up for it.
Right.
How much of, well, it felt unbelievable to us. It's unbelievable if you're not a wretched person.
Right.
Like, it was unbelievable to us a few years ago that there was a scam where parents were paying a coach to doctor their kids' applications for college, and saying they were on the rowing team and they had never rowed in their life. That
Mm-hmm.
seemed far-fetched and ridiculous to us, but it happened. So sometimes just because it seems unbelievable to us, because we're not in those certain
Mm-hmm.
spaces.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just find it very interesting, because it's like you talked about, you started off talking about complicity, and I am asking, well, how are we complicit in all of this?
Well, I want to go back then to, I'm going to talk a little bit about my coming of age years, the 90s. In the 90s, lot of the, and I won't just say in the 90s because we can go in each decade and find a thread.
Mm-hmm.
But in the 90s, there were a lot of open secrets. You heard about, you might have saw some of these people at a club, in the club. You might have had a friend or two who did some things to get into a VIP, or they might have been picked out of line to get into a VIP. Some was in the VIP, some made it to the after parties of the VIP, right? In the 90s, we've heard about a lot of these experiences. The rape culture, the misogyny, the physical abuse. And there were stories on some of them. Like, what I found interesting in watching this documentary was all the documents of the news stories of stuff we grew up seeing.
Mm-hmm.
There was documented evidence and stories about Aaliyah and R. Kelly in the 90s, long before the documentary about R. Kelly came out, long before the 2000s and the 2020s, because Aaliyah died. What year did Aaliyah die? It's been a while.
It's been in early 2000s. I want to say 2001 or 2002,
But in the 90s, when her first album came out,
2001, yes.
we heard the rumors then. We've all, in all of these entertainment movies, music, you go back and watch videos, and we've talked about this before. You go back and watch this video of Richard Pryor doing it was a roast of Richard Pryor, and then he gets on the mic and talks about some of the relationships with some of the biggest movie stars of the time from the 70s, 60s, and 70s.
That were men.
That were men, right?
Mm-hmm.
There were rumors about Bill Cosby. There were rumors and stories about Bill Cosby. They may have made the news. Certainly, we don't have the 24-hour news cycle. We don't have the internet. We don't have all of these lanes that we have now for
Right.
this to be for us to see it all the time. But if we're going to be honest, so when we talk about complicity, you know, this story that's been out, this man dead now, Jeffrey Epstein. There were stories about Donald Trump at the beauty pageants, going back there when them little girls was getting dressed and undressed at Miss Teen USA.
Right.
There's a whole interview with him talking about if his daughter wasn't his, look how beautiful she is. She would be somebody he would date.
Mm-hmm.
And that was broadcast. So I think, as a society, if we're going to talk about the reckoning, we all need to take a reckoning of what we have been eyewitness to, and have turned a blind eye to. Because I know in my generation, I could have got flued out if I wanted to.
Yeah, that was never a thing for me, so I don't know. I can't speak on that. That was never a
I'm
thing.
just saying.
This is so. I wanted to go back real quick about racketeering because I quickly looked it up, and hopefully my now I can't find it. That happens to me all the time. Okay. Rico, sorry. All right, so it says to violate RICO, a person must engage in a pattern of racketeering activity connected to an enterprise. The law defines 35 offenses as constituting racketeering, including gambling, murder, kidnapping, arson, drug dealing, bribery. Significantly, mail and wire fraud are included on the list. And RICO stands for Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Law. So I think it goes back for me, like I said, I felt like we got the whole trial. They said they were bringing up RICO charges. They said that the organization was a criminal enterprise. Bad boy organization, right? And yet,
Because isn't that how they got Irv Gotti and Murder Inc.? Wasn't it on RICO as well?
I don't know, possibly, but
because that's the eras of the 90s too, early 2000s.
Right. But my point here is that when I looked at this documentary specifically, and we talked about murder, they talked about the connection to Biggie's death and Tupac's death. Look, we've been talking about Biggie and Tupac's deaths for a long time, and
30 years, almost 30 years. Because it'll be 96 was Tupac and 97 was Biggie, if I'm not mistaken, in the years they were murdered.
I can't say what happened, what didn't happen, but there was a lot of credible information that was presented. And again, as the director of a documentary, we know that it is not for me to tell you how to think about a situation. It is just to present the data, and you connect the dots for yourself. Obviously, we can see from the title as well as the manner in which the information is presented. The director and obviously had probably a position on the situation. But, for me, I'm like, okay, so we have all this credible evidence that he was involved or he was connected to people who were involved with Tupac's death as well as Biggie's death. That feels like that falls under the RICO charge, right? If we have this young lady saying that she was kidnapped his former assistant, saying that she was kidnapped and they went to Kid Cudi's house to kill him. We
And
know,
Kid Cudi did testify, and she did testify at the trial.
right? We know Kid Cudi testified because his vehicle was blown up, and we talked about Eminem, or you sent me the clip about Eminem. That same song, Eminem spells it out that he blew up Kid Cudi's car. So you blew up this man's vehicle, and this other young lady saying you
Or
kidnapped.
had someone else do it. Let's say that.
I'm sorry. Allegedly, you were connected to Kid Cudi's vehicle being blown up.
Mm-hmm.
And allegedly, this young woman is saying I was kidnapped and had to be was brought over to Kid Cudi's house. And this man said he was going to kill. Again, kidnapping, that's on there. Drug dealing. Perhaps he was not actually a dealer, but from the evidence, it appears that there were a lot of illicit and illegal drugs. We just saw Matthew Perry die of this whole ketamine situation. And this woman was the ketamine queen, apparently out in Los Angeles.
And a lot of the physicians were complicit in his death.
And the physicians was complicit in his death. So maybe you were not actually a dealer, but did you participate in acquiring drugs from someone and have a doctor who was complicit in it as well? Like, I just felt like there were enough other avenues that perhaps the RICO case could have been built out a little bit more. I'm no lawyer. Maybe I'm wrong in all of this, but if at least with what was presented in this documentary, it felt like, maybe we should have needled on that just a little bit more. But like I said, I feel like people just once that baby oil thing came out, like people lost their mind about the baby oil.
Mm-hmm.
And that just went in directions that it didn't even need to go in. And we needed to be focused on, again, all of these artists. So you just played a clip for me of day 26, speaking to Vlad on Vlad TV. Now, y'all know we don't mess with Vlad, but that's a whole nother story. But we watched him, we watched this group of young men say a lot, but not say much at all. And I feel like,
because that whole "I'm not gonna snitch" thing is still
right. That's what I was gonna say. I feel like too many people are still protected abusers.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see these young men, these grown men, and they crying, and they have to stop the interview so that they can regroup because they are crying. And one of their bandmates is like, yeah, I don't know why somebody would want to do. So you have emails, obviously, that have been circulated. I just said mail and wire fraud. Well, he had put in emails. We saw emails that
Aubrey O'Day read what was put in about her in an email.
Right. And so, yeah, so if in this guy's case, if something was put in email to suggest that they wanted to hurt or harm him, all of these things feel like they would have fallen under the RICO charge. You say that all of these people, this young lady says her lawyer looks at this contract and he said,
we remember Babs. We remember Babs from the first Making the Band. That's what I'm saying. It was like, it was a retelling of my 20s.
Yeah. But for her to, was it Babs who said it was the other girl in Dirty Money? I thought it was.
No, it was Babs. It was Babs. Mm-hmm.
Well, nonetheless, the contract, apparently, she said her lawyer told her, you will be famous, but you will not be rich and famous.
Mm-hmm. You will have fame, but not fame and fortune.
Fame and fortune. Yes, I'm sorry. You'll have fame, but not fame and fortune. So you signed this contract because you really did want to get put on. And in your 2019, whatever year old mind, you're like, hey, but I could parlay that fame into fortune. but you just signed like your whole situation away.
Like Lil Cassie, 19, 10
Right.
album deal, and never had one album put out.
Right. So that's why I'm saying it, like that to me feels like, I mean, there has to have been some these contracts where you have had people sign, but you literally did not pay them money for you. You gonna charge me to dance in the video? I ain't even ask you to dance in.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, Suge crazy, but we can't never deny he had a print. He had a print when he said, when he said, if you do not want the producer all up in the videos, come to Death Row. Now, Death Row obviously had its challenges too. But I am like, wait a minute. So you pay yourself for dancing in my video. You pay yourself for producing the album. You pay yourself every single time you have any connection to my project. And I'm walking away with no money. Craig
Mm-hmm.
Mack went to his death with nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And Biggie, you made his family pay for his own funeral, but you decided that you were going to give him the biggest funeral that Brooklyn had ever seen. New
Well,
York.
there's a dispute about that as well. The estate has made a statement that that's not that wasn't completely accurate. But
Okay, well then, did Sean Combs write a check?
I
I mean,
don't know.
it's like we can just go and see if he wrote a check. You know.
I think because you know what, Miss Wallace did Miss Wallace go on to glory too?
Yes, she has.
So Miss Wallace has gone to glory. Miss Afeni has gone to glory, which is Tupac's mama. Both of those mothers have gone to glory. Both of them young men went to glory at 24 and 26, or 24 and 25 years of age, have gone on to glory. And so many others. Heavy D has gone on to glory. I mean, Andre Harrell has gone on to glory. There's so many who were prevalent in the industry who was a part of this story in ways. Albie Show is still on this side of glory, but he was on his way. He had a very, very bad scare recently. And so it's very, very but it's also very just sad and troublesome that so many don't live to tell the story.
Right.
Right. That's one of the things that also struck me as I watched this documentary was, like I said, it's a retelling of my coming of age years. And so many did not make it to 50.
Right.
Um,
I'm sorry for interrupting. I just saw a comment that reminded me. The gentleman also who was the co-founder.
yes,
Okay.
Mr. Kirk Burroughs. Mm-hmm.
Again, this man seemed very credible to me. I don't know how you felt.
And I was trying to figure out, did he? I was trying to figure out, did he testify at any point during the trial? And that's what I couldn't remember.
I don't remember his name coming up, but it seems that he implied that he too was sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
He implied that he was threatened with a baseball bat and made to return the 25% shares
Mm-hmm.
in the company. But what I found very interesting, again, from the start, you put the company, and I'm not going to say this is the reason, but this was the implication. There was a tragic situation that happened, a party that was promoted, a celebrity game that didn't happen.
And I remember when that made the news.
Right. People were trampled and died. And your reaction was, oh, I'm going to start my record label, but I'm going to put 75% of my shares in my mother's name so that nobody can basically recoup any money. Again, the woman who was shot in the face when Shine went to jail, this lady said very specifically, this one shot me. This one did not.
Right.
Yet the one who sat in jail for all those years, who still says, I did not shoot anybody. It's like you, 90s soundtrack to my upbringing, listen, I'm coming out was our stroll strut song, honey. Okay. We was hitting it. We were ready. Right. But I just am like, and it's so hard because it's like at the end of the day, what do you just stop listening to everything? My God. But it is, I do not see how there was nothing brought up. Now that we know all the stuff we know, why all these artists, and all of these artists have said they ain't got no money.
Mace.
Right. Carl Thomas still on the circuit. He ain't sitting comfortably at home. Poor little Marvin Winans, I guess he had to just go back with the family and do whatever, because we ain't seen to heard from him for real. This man, Mark Curry, that was in the documentary, I was like, I vaguely remember him, but obviously he was a ghostwriter, right? That part was funny, though. That was the only thing that made me chuckle a little bit. But to see these grown men crying,
and Mary's still out there, but Mary got out of bed more early.
Yes,
she left. That's right. She got out,
and she was on Uptown. So technically, so
yeah.
But yeah, Mary had to. Because she was getting messed up with the whole Jodeci and all that stuff. But I just like you seeing these grown men. I mean, Mace has gotten to the point that he wants to fight him. But I just, it's hard. It's hard for me to wrap my brain around how you got away with messing over all of these people financially.
But how is it? Because Mary Gordy did it.
Oh yeah, well all the music people did it. I mean, listen, I'm in a situation right now. We won't say any names, but I'm in a situation right now fighting for money that's due me, right? So I know people will steal right from up under your nose. I know that. But the contract that I signed didn't say steal from me. The contract that I signed said, this is how much you're supposed to pay me.
TLC talked about it. Remember when Left Eye was like, this is how you can sell this many records and ain't make no money.
Right.
Remember that video she said? So how does it persist is what's killing me. And now it's not as it's different now, but you know how it also persists now? Because streaming, you get 0.001
something like that
on a stream. Like, y'all, we don't even buy records no more. You know how many streams you have to, how many plays you have to make money off of 0.001 cent is what they get, or 0.003 cents on the play of a song.
Right.
Child, listen. We got a comment here. It says, I don't think it's surprising at all. It seems to be what happens in that industry, so no one bats an eye. And I would say it's not just that industry. As we talked about up at the top, I think the reckoning is all around. We've seen it in movies. We see it in sports. Now those, for actors and for athletes, they do have a union. They have had, so now there's certain guarantees, certain rookie contracts, or certain things. But for, like, say for the NFL, for instance, like the NBA, for years now have had guaranteed contracts. Now that's something that athletes had to fight for. So they have a guaranteed contract. So whether they end up playing them years or not, they get paid that money, right? Kind of like these college football coaches or these college basketball. They got guaranteed money. NFL don't have guaranteed contracts.
Right.
And if you sign a contract, you can sign $140 million contract, and if $20 million is guaranteed, and you have a career-ending injury, you didn't get $140 million. You got 20, and that's gonna have to sustain you for the rest of your life until you figure out what else you're gonna do, what other type of business and or enterprise you're gonna go out and do and take on, because there it is not no guarantee.
Yeah, well, and let me be clear about something, and I just gonna drop this in the comments about Spotify, for example. It's 0.003 to 0.008. It says for Spotify specifically, but
But okay, like,
listen, I'm not saying that you got to sell a lot. I was just putting it up there.
Okay, like, but I'm just saying, honey, you ain't even getting a fraction of a cent.
No,
you ain't even getting one. You're not even getting 1 penny off of each spin. Right. What?
You are getting a fraction of a cent. But no, what I was saying is, when I say I didn't mean that I don't believe that it happens. What I was trying to say is, if it's happening to everybody, at what point, or again, where we go back to being complicit, at what point do we all say, because it's one of him, it's 112 got at least 4 members. So you mean 112 total
Jodeci
estate? No, I'm going with the actual bad boy. Biggie's estate, Marvin Winans, Carlton. Like, we couldn't get up and fight this boy.
No, they couldn't and wouldn't, because, as you said, if you go related to Rico, then people saw the gang participation in security or what have you. Girl, now that was a revelation for me. The biggest revelation was that Suge Knight was once Albie Shore's bodyguard.
That was amazing.
That was the biggest revelation for me.
And I feel like I might have heard that somewhere, but you know how you just put stuff in the back of your mind because it's just not one of those things that needs to be at the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
All I know is so okay. Now let me we all just rapid fire because we about to be to the end.
We got another comment here. Ava once said, "For ourselves, we have to discern whether or not we are in a place of desperation or passion. Too often they're capitalizing off of people who are in the former." Absolutely.
Well, amen and hallelujah, because yes, and a lot of these young people who are seeking out opportunities, again, we do have the privilege of having gone to college. We do have the privilege, even if I don't know everything that a contract says, I know some of the stuff. And even with some of the stuff, sometimes the legalese get to be a little too much. One of the things, basically, the reality reckoning, what Bethany Frankel said was the reason why she was able to keep her earnings from Skinny Girl is she scratched that out of her contract, because they had where they get a percentage of all your money, all your businesses that you promote on the shows. She said she scratched that part out of her contract. Other people didn't. So it actually triggered what they call like a Bethany clause at thereafter, where moving forward, everybody has to give a piece of their money to the network. Mm-hmm. And then when they were talking about BravoCon, this is a conference like Comic-Con. This is a conference they've created where they have propped up these various
brands. Mm-hmm.
They bring the fans in and they're hawking all of their stuff. And you're like, oh, because in your mind, right? At least in my mind, I'm like, oh, well, if I know they're not making a whole lot per episode in the beginning. Like one of the ladies said, $3,000 per episode. If you think there's 10.
No, some people said seven. It was like the guy from the Love Is Blind was right. It was 72.50 for the whole season.
Right. I'm saying, but for Bravo, that theirs was 3,000. She said hers started at 3,000 per episode. And if you think 10 episodes, $30,000, but that's before taxes, and that's all the work, all the things you got to put into it. But you're at least thinking, but at least if they're creating other brands off of this, that they're getting paid on those other brands. And so to hear like, oh, they also are giving a percentage of those brands to the network, that's a little bit sobering, because I was like, so when on Married to Medicine, when do they do medicine? Because if you work in that many hours, now they probably get paid a lot more than a few seasons in. But if you getting paid and you working that many hours, when do you have time to actually do the medicine part? So for the women who are actual doctors. So anyway, back to this Sean Combs, The Reckoning. I'll be sure Suge Knight being his bodyguard. B, Sean Combs having this thing about just going after everybody's woman. That in and of itself, never really understood how Kim Porter and Diddy got together, particularly post an I'll Be Sure. But then when you saw, again, Cassie was with Ryan Leslie, and then you saw...
You started with Misa Hilton, was friends with Eric Sermon.
Was Eric Sermon. It's like, that in and of itself tells me about your level of insecurity, such that you felt like you had to go after all these men's women, instead of just like New York has got to have thousands, if not millions of women alone, that you could not, you had to have those women.
But we see, if we think about this entertainment, like I said, it's got music, it got sports, it got movies, in this whole entertainment industry, we do see a lot of recycling. Basketball done showed us that there's a whole lot of recycling of the same chicks. And you like, there are a lot of women in this world. Do y'all really have to recycle the same 5?
Yeah. But maybe those same 5 are the ones who down for the cause. Like, again, what was Jessica's comment about desperation? Maybe they the ones down for the cause. Yeah. So also, I always have loved me some Christopher Williams, but I even saw the picture. I was like, Christopher, you weren't even looking in the picture. Poor little Christopher Williams. I just feel like Christopher Williams been through a lot. He went from being the light-skinned epitome, the prototype, to poor little Christopher Williams.
He said, "Don't wake me, I'm dreaming, girl."
Right. And I mean, he got a new song out on Spotify. Y'all go listen to it,
please go listen to it, because he only gonna get 0.003 cents on each time. So you got to listen to it a whole lot for him. You know how many times you got to listen to something to make a penny? One of us has to listen to something for that person to even get a penny.
What, 33 or so times? Maybe my math.
No, do that math. You talking about like 100, because that's got 2 zeros in front of it.
3 times. You right. 333 times before you get to 0.999, rounded up to a penny.
Yeah, we gotta listen to one. So that's why my poor child ain't making no money. I gotta listen to it 300 times. I'm gonna have to put his stuff on repeat so he can at least get a penny.
The other thing was a little, I will say no name, but we was like, so Mr. Keefy D, you were selling all them drugs, but you just said, some of these people, you just was like, I'm just never gonna get my mouth fixed. I just not gonna do that. Okay. Why you gonna talk about Usher messing up your car, sir?
So listen, I saw this one post that said this. So where is Farnsworth Bentley?
I've been wondering where Farnsworth Bentley.
And we don't know where is so the documentary that has, I can't remember who they said, but it was like Mace, 112, Usher, Justin Bieber. We won't. All y'all got something to say.
This is what I'm saying. And at this time, oh boy is already in jail. If y'all all just come ahead, coalesce, come together, put it out there. Let's stop protecting.
If we're gonna tell it, then you gotta tell it. Oh, come on, y'all. We waiting. Like at this point,
stop protecting abusers.
Let there be a real reckoning. Stop protecting abusers. Catholic Church, stop protecting abusers. Movie industry, stop protecting abusers. Political, stop protecting abusers. We still ain't seen the Epstein files.
Still ain't seen the Epstein files.
We still ain't seen the Epstein files. Can we all agree that we do not need to? Can we stop protecting abusers and stop allowing ourselves to be abused?
Right.
And the part of abuse is gaslight. You gonna get up here and you gonna throw. I am so glad that Black Admiral, who his resignation goes into effect in January. I am so, and who was over the Caribbean area. I'm so glad he resigned, so he don't have to be up there lying and taking a fall and being complicit for some actions that people are doing. That you know, and if it ain't illegal, because see, the only reason why something is illegal is because if somebody writes a law, they can write a law to make it legal. Because see, in some places marijuana was illegal, but it ain't illegal no more. So there's people in jail who were dead for marijuana possessions and sales who ain't in jail now for who can't go to jail now for marijuana possession sale. What's legal is changes over time. It is flexible and adaptable.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, enslavement was legal at one time.
Come on.
And
so what I want,
it's still legal if you're in the penal
prison system. That's right. So what I want all these folks to do is just, and this whole thing about not stitching. Now, I want to say this. Because there are some people like, well, they didn't say this ain't true and whatever. Listen, every person in that documentary told their truth. They told the truth from their perspective and their vantage point and their experiences. Just like Aubrey O'Day was talking about reading something that somebody said about her because she was out. She wasn't conscious when this was occurring and happening to her. And like, did I block it out so deep in my recesses? The young man was like wondering, why am I waking up sore? Mm-hmm. Okay. So everybody told their truth. So we need to get out of this. Oh, well, that's not true because this. No, because each of those persons have different experiences and each of them have different truths. So everybody told the truth from their lived experience. But your truth is not what can be proven in a court of law or prosecuted. There might not be a law to protect your truth. But for those that where there is a law, where there is, let's just blow the lid off of this whole thing so people can start being treated like human beings and that we can have more empathy, that we can have more compassion, care, and concern for one another, that we can have more fairness. That's why we need a reckoning in this whole thing. Because we just need more fairness. We need more equity. We need more compassion. We just need to do it.
Well, this is a few things. I know we're over time, but number one, I agree with all of that. Number two, I feel like, again, back to the reality reckoning. One of the things they talk about is how, because we have seen all of these, the reality TV has created this model where they want you to see people at their worst. And because it has created that model of wanting you to see people at their worst, we have, in effect, become not even just desensitized, but almost accepting of very bad behavior.
Yes.
Alcohol abuse, sexual abuse, They showed a young man who they had a whole scandal around. He getting in the bed naked with his on below the deck with a castmate when she was out cold. So violence, like we flipping tables, everything has become Jerry Springer in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
God rest the dead, but the Jerry Springer show, in a lot of ways, this is how we are operating. And when we operate like this, but then we question, why do we have so much violence in our society? Why are people not able to talk through their problems and work through them? It's because we have become desensitized and accepting of bad behavior as long as it's entertaining to us. But at some point, it's no longer going to be entertaining. 3, I am sincere about that. I feel like all of these artists, this whole, snitches get stitches and what have you. Yes, you may have signed contracts, but you also were young. You may be been under duress. You may not have, obviously all of your prefrontal cortex wasn't fully developed. Whatever the case may be, it is time. He is already in jail. And if you believe that that is where he needs to stay, then there needs to be more. We got to put some other things together.
Mm-hmm.
Some other things. And last but not least, 50 Cent Curtis Jackson is the executive producer on this. My guess is that 50 Cent just contributed money, as most executive producers do. Not all, some do have a role in it, but most of them just contribute money to the situation. I think, what is that you're playing?
I'm joining something else, so I know we're wrapping up.
Gotcha. I would just say that 50 Cent is not necessarily to be applauded for doing this, or executive producing this documentary, because he also has a lot of pettiness associated with the manner in which he does things. And the fact of the matter is, he's been in this business for a long time too, so he's complicit in it as well.
Well, I would say this: two things can be true. You can do some good and have a whole lot of bad in your life. And he ain't the only one, there's a bunch. But the key thing is for us, as we talk about in Sunday school, what are we going to do?
Right.
And with that, because it be overtime, y'all.
Have a good night.
Good night, y'all. It's time for the reckoning all around.
Bye.
Bye.